Hey, no. Today I'm going to share the secret to how to get super crisp, white, embossed sentiments or images on dark cardstock. My secret is so easy. You're just going to be like, let's get to it.
All right, so I'm going to use just regular black cardstock, a sentiment from this stamp set, and a stamping block, really. Now here's secret number one. You need super fine embossing powder for sentiments. Super fine embossing powder. I'm using opaque white from Wow. I absolutely love Wow embossing powders. Powders? All right, so that's secret one. Then I've got some white pigment ink, embossing ink, and this is some kind of anti-static doodad I found. God knows how long I've had it. I will link to everything if it's still available in the description below. So I'm going to do it two different ways. The first is going to be without using any kind of anti-static tool. So up here, I'm going to go ahead and stamp this image using some embossing ink. The one I'm using is from Wow. I like it because it's slow drying time, so I don't have to work so fast. But there are other companies that carry embossing ink. And then the second way I'm going to do, and this is my favorite, I'll just go ahead and spill the beans and the spoiler alert, what a bummer, is I love using white pigment ink. Now you got to use pigment ink because pigment ink stays wet on the paper. You can't use a dye ink, it's not going to work. So white pigment ink, the one I'm using is from scrapbook.com, and I'll link to everything I'm using in the description below. And then I'm going to sprinkle on my super fine white embossing powder. Now you can see there's powder all over the place. Give your paper a good whack because you only want the powder sticking to where the ink is. So up at the top you can see, and that's where the embossing ink was. I still got some powder stuck where I didn't want it. So I'm using a dry brush to kind of push that all away as best as I can. It's not perfect, but I don't think anybody that you make a card for that receives it and there's like little bits of embossing powder on the sentiment is going to fault you for it. And if they do, then you need another friend. I'm just saying. So then I went ahead and heat embossed it, and then here is option number one. So no anti-static. By far the crisper white is on the bottom there, and that is using the white pigment ink. So this is some little tool I found in my room. God knows how long I've had it, and if I can find it I will link it, but I'll link other options as well. You can also use baby powder or cornstarch. Just put it in a like old sock or something and use that. And what the purpose of this is it helps keeps that embossing powder from sticking all over the place like it did on the sample up above. So I'm doing it the same way, embossing ink on the top, pigment ink on the bottom. Don't worry, all that white powder will push it away. Same thing, I'm going to sprinkle on the white embossing powder. See, I love it so much I have the big mega jar, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss. While I'm doing that, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. You guys know how much I love them. I especially love Jane Davies, and this is a recent class I took of hers painting penguins, and I just love it. I love her unique way of watercoloring, and here's what I actually made from her class. But Skillshare is not just about watercolor. I'll show you in a minute, but these are all the things that I have painted over the last several months, incorporating various classes and various instructors, all in the watercoloring genres. I just adore it for many things. It's not just watercolor. There's so many different things. I'm going to show you something funny in just a second. But the first 1,000 people to use the link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. All the information is in the description below. So be sure to check that out and see if it's your jam. But I've just had a great time just doing all kinds of different things, from animals to flowers to all kinds of stuff. But listen, I was curious, so I typed in the word cooking. Look at all these cooking classes, right? And you can do it by cuisine, what you're interested in. So good grief. Go over to Skillshare, try my link, type in a keyword, and go to town. So once the embossing powder was heated and dried and all that good stuff, I just took a cloth and wiped off the white powder. Use a cloth, a paper towel, your sleeve, just kidding, whatever. And that's that. So in looking at this, you get crisper results with the white pigment ink. As far as using that anti-static tool, I feel the results are the same as far as white pigment ink goes, but that's because I'm using Wow. And they formulate their bottles with some anti-static stuff inside the bottles. If I were to use any other kind of embossing powder that wasn't Wow, I would have had it powder sticking all over the place. So if you're going to use Wow embossing powder, you're probably safe not having one of those anti-static tools. But my vote is white pigment ink. That is my secret. It's out of the bag. What do you think? Let me know.